You say that a lot.
Okay, welcome back to our work meeting. We will pick up with item 3.1, formation of a fiber optic utility. Nathan?
So, council has a staff report, been available out there. I don't wanna spend a whole lot of time going through that. We do have our partners, Strata here, who's gonna give a little bit of a review of what they've done, and then after they're finished, I'll bring back staff, kind of wrap up and present then to council for discussion. That works for you.
Great.
Yeah.
You just want me to just be right here, is this okay?
That's great.
Which one of these buttons? Play?
No, the arrow on the.
Oh, the faded one, that
The
makes
one that has
sense.
no arrow.
Okay, so, as Nathan, mentioned, we've kind of been working with you guys for quite some time now, and we've finalized all of our high-level design and our initial conversations with you guys, and would like to present all this information to you. Well, I'll try and be as quick through this as I can, if it'll move to the next slide. Maybe? Okay, try one more time. Here we go. So, this is basically the
Just
project.
FYI, guys, there's no video being shown.
Yeah, that camera's connection to this. There are a lot of things going weird tonight. Okay.
You should be able to see the screen, but not our camera.
Can you see the screen, Steve?
I cannot.
Alright. The camera for the room is not functioning, but we thought you could see the screen, so John's gonna try and do that.
I'll send him the.
I can see the screen now, thank you.
Okay.
Great.
Told us probably a bandwidth.
I think we talked about the Quidditch World Cup the last time we were here, right? We don't televise that. This is what the project boundary is, the Harriman City boundary, and we've kind of discussed most of this. Initially, we're thinking about separating this into 3 different areas where we'll house electronics. Those different 3 areas will then be broken out into serving areas. We're anticipating about 39 different areas where we will distribute fiber optics to, or you guys can select to do that. This is what the initial feeder routes will look like from each of the shelters into each one of these cabinets or these serving areas. And this is what a typical serving area may look like from a very high level design. And as part of our efforts, we gathered information regarding your water meters, the number of locations that you guys have, and ran that through all of our different engineering practices, and we've come up with this design. Typically, we try and make sure that everybody is covered. We've talked about how we're going to plan for the future and making sure that this is going to serve you guys for many, many years. But like I said, this is what a typical serving area looks like. This would be 1 of 39. In this case, it's cabinet number 9. And then feel free to jump in with any questions, interrupt me. This is a really high level timeline of what we can expect if we continue to move forward. We've finished with a high level design right now. I think the next steps would be looking at how to fund the project, start looking at contracts. If we move in a relatively quick manner, I think we could probably be there Q1 of 2024. Move into design, mid-level and low-level. That takes typically about 16 months for an area this large. And we can usually begin construction about 6 months into that process. All in all, we'd be building for about 3 years, and yeah. This is basically a micro view of what the construction timeline looks like. So imagine that one serving area that was shown on the screen. This is what that timeline typically looks like. We're looking at like usually a 12-week build timeline for all of your pipe going into the ground, and then we're usually 2 to 6 weeks, between 2 and 6. Well, it'd be about 6 weeks to get fiber in the pipe, get it turned up, and get customers started to turn up. And then we would do drops and installations for the next 18 weeks maximum. Now, what does this mean financially? We've presented several different options here, and I'll run through them briefly. These are the micro trenching options. What we tried to represent here is a representation of all of our meetings with you guys. Some of the things that we've talked about in the past is like, what does the utility fees going to look like? For residents, it's gonna be $15, for businesses, $30, a higher opt-out percentage, we're modeling that at 20% now. Right here, you're seeing on the left, a 5% bond interest rate, on the right, an 8% bond interest rate, and then the retail rates that are associated with that. I would point out here, this is the micro trenching option. It's a less expensive option, and with builds like this, approximately 71% to 75%, 70 to 75% of your build is determined by the construction methodology. Here we're looking at about $67 million, and depending on the interest rate for the bond, the very bottom line there, the minimum take rate for estimated monthly bond payment, you're looking at 49% or 94% on an 8% interest rate. Any questions or anything I may have missed, Tyler? Good, doing great.
How realistic is the 5% bond rate at today's market?
That's a good question.
It's not realistic, so Bountiful got 5% on their bonds, which were backed by sales tax. Utopia, who has a long-term history of using utility revenues, got, I believe, 5.6. Our financial advisor has said, just because this is so unknown and hasn't been done much, to model at 7 to 8%, so that's why the 8%'s on that model.
Thanks, Scott.
And I have reached out to DA Davidson, who's given us some other models. We have not been able to connect or finalize, but they were also analyzing it to see what they thought.
Okay, great. This is essentially all the exact same information, but this represents a higher retail rate at $80 and $70, which brings your minimum take rate to 38% and 74% respectively, depending on your interest rate. This next slide is once again the exact same, but this is going to represent a different type of construction methodology. This would be primarily directional boring. Everything exactly the same, and you can see the estimated monthly bond payment percentage, your take rates of 56% and 104%.
Is that possible?
So which
No,
We're
it's
gonna
not
build,
possible.
we're gonna
which
build more
properties
homes.
are gonna double down?
Yeah, exactly, right?
All those ADUs we're gonna approve.
Right, so this I think illustrates how difficult the project would be if we look at an 8% interest rate, 104% is not realistic.
And that's where we're at on like $4 million, right?
Yeah, this represents a $71 million project,
Almost $5 million more, right? From 68.
67 to 71.
Yeah, okay.
And this one, once again, exactly the same, but representing a higher retail rate, go from 104% to 82% and 44% for your estimated monthly bond payment. This is something that we've added just recently. This kind of shows the revenue sharing and how everything works there. We tried to make it just as simple as possible. But essentially, you can see that there's a $58 for a 250 meg package on the left, or $63 for a 1 gig package. $7 allocated for a network refresh, $22 for the network operator, and then your different rates depending on the tier package, and then a $15 utility fee for the bond payment. Any questions here or comments, Tyler? Okay, I think that's all we have, unless you guys have any other questions.
So best case scenario, lowest cost, highest interest rate, most conservative would be 74% take rate on our current base model.
Yes.
So, if there aren't questions, per the staff report, my suggestion is let's take a step back and relook at this and what feasibility, like I said, I have a call in with DA Davidson trying to understand what they're seeing in the market. Since they're the ones who first presented, hey, this is how you could fund it, so I do want to understand what they are seeing. That percentage, that interest rate percentage is the driving factor really of how feasible this is or not. Some of the other cities who've done this recently, Lehigh went out and bonded first and then went through this process, so they have some cheap money from, I don't know, 2019, 2020.
Can we borrow it?
American Fork has not yet
I'm sure
bonded.
they would at 20%.
Yeah.
We did meet with American Fork this week, just chatted a little bit about the feasibility of an interlocal and what that might look like, so that we are progressing that conversation. But we're really looking to council as to what you want us to do for the next steps. There are still some pieces with how you would either form an entity or a utility that we need to put a fine point on. But I guess as staff, our recommendation is to finish some of that and then relook at the feasibility.
I think that's fair.
Yeah, I mean, those are the two things that, at least for me, that, I know I'm a broken record on a lot of things, but it's, the entity is that airtight, right? Can we set it up the way that we want it to? That's kind of, to me, the overarching thing that protects the city and the public, right? And then second, it's not financially feasible at the moment, right? I had a few other kind of side conversations. We'll see what happens in the markets as we see interest rates hopefully stabilize, and we'll see what the economy is in several months, but I think it'll probably take us several months to just sort out the entity part. Have to talk to bond council and see what that looks like, but I mean, 8% and 94% take rates just not doable.
I agree.
Yeah, we'll be because one of the things I think just so councils, maybe there's the opportunity to break it up instead of trying to do the entire city at once. Do you do an area that we know we're gonna get the higher take rates to then prove that we can then get maybe a lower bond on? So there are some options there, but we'll have to talk to Strata a little bit about, there's some economies of scale doing this all at one time, and so just some ideas that have been thrown at me in the last week that I'm trying to, we need to
Is
just,
there
some time to figure
potential
out.
to do just the backbone for the city portion as well? I mean, I don't know
I
what
think-
that cost wise, or if we can even,
I think
budget
that's
that.
part of that conversation. We'll come back with some information, what that looks like, what we've accomplished with that.
The financing, part of it is gonna be an ongoing conversation, right? See when conditions are right to do it, but that doesn't really matter if we don't have the entity set up properly to do it.
Yep.
So we kinda have to focus on that part, and we know that the financial discussion is ongoing in the background, but
I agree.
Okay.
So we're ready to pull the trigger if the point comes. Okay, Steve, any comments?
if you can hear.
Can you hear
what
us?
you said.
So I probably have lots of comments. First thing is we need to redo the sound in that room so that anybody who's remote can actually hear something that's being said. That's just such a failure on our part. It's really frustrating at this point. In regards to this situation, I think that we're just going to have to pivot and figure out another way. There's really only a couple of options. You either charge more, which I don't think is a great option. You scale down the scope of what we're doing. I think that's what Nathan was saying, that you do it in phases. So you may have a much smaller target of 30 million or something, and you do a part of the city first, and then once you get the revenue model established and the opt-in rates established, you can go and refinance and get cheaper money and do the rest of the city. Or the other option is to make it a completely opt-in situation, but then you're risking sales tax revenues to back the bond payments, which we can see are gonna be pretty high. So, I don't know that we wanna put a potential, several $1 million general fund liability on the city. So, it's not that there aren't paths forward, it's just we have to decide which one of those alternative paths we want to pursue, or, frankly, give up on the idea and do something completely different. And I don't necessarily, I'm not ready to make a recommendation on any of those, but I'm just outlining there are options. We just have to figure out which ones we want to do.
I agree. Okay. Okay, we'll fix the sound tonight, Steve.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate you.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
That's me, but
Usually should get your meeting in.
Yeah, I know.
Thanks for ourselves here. Yeah, it's whether you can see what's on the screen.
Steve, where are you at in Montana?
it's like the Kalispell, I think.
I'm in Kalispell.
Maybe it's your internet.
I don't think my internet is causing your camera not to work, so.
Okay. Yeah, move on to item 3.2, consideration of the enter into a reimbursement agreement for the cost of PRV. Jonathan, I didn't see you.
Yeah.
Maybe just make sure you're speaking loud, so that we.
I usually don't have a problem with speaking out of here, so I should be okay.
Can we have a microphone?
If you're
Wanna
standing,
mic
you're,
me?
you're
Handheld, you
projecting
can walk
towards us
around
anyway.
All right,
We don't have one in here, it's just these things.
John, I've got 3 slides. If you wouldn't mind just helping me go to the first one, that'd be great. So back in 2015, there was a project called East Ridge that came in. And as every project comes in, we require a hydraulic analysis to make sure that the water system that they install won't adversely affect the city, and that they will also be able to come in with the current system that we have. And that's just part of every project. And this particular model, well, let me back up. So at that time when we ran that model, we showed that we needed a new tank, as well as a new pipeline to make some connections. The reason for the tank was when we ran the model, it ran pressures pretty low on an adjacent area. And so to bolster that area, we needed a tank. Right after, so they moved forward with phase 1 and they completed their project. Thanks, Nathan.
You can be in charge of your own destiny.
So they constructed phase 1. They come back for phase 2 in the land use application for phase 2 or 3, and went through the same process, except for in that meantime, between the 2 phases, we had done what's called a calibrated model to represent what exists out in the actual system, as opposed to entering information without going out and testing the data back and forth. So anyway, long story short, the calibrated model showed that a PRV and the tank, the PRV is needed for the connection, for redundancy. So then that connection wasn't needed, therefore the PRV wasn't either, nor the tank, at least based on our best available data and the model. But the developer had already purchased that PRV, knowing that he was going to need it based on the original model. And so when we gave him that news, we said, hey, you actually don't need it. He's like, well, I already purchased it. So he's asking if we would purchase that. So that's the crux of this. You know what? I'm in charge of my own destiny, but I didn't even go to my map. But here's the map of the development, and that yellow dot is the PRV, which would connect to a future connection from an upper water zone. So of course, it's purchased, and it's sitting in the public works yard currently. We have, in addition to this place, we also have other places where a PRV can go.
Can go or is needed?
Can and needed, both. So this one here, preference, we could be just put it right there, or we could wait till it's necessitated, and we need one, in the project we have going on the other side of town that we could install. The prices of these have gone up. The recommendation is to reimburse so that we actually get a better price and use it someplace we need. So anyway, that's the crux of the discussion here. I guess the next phase would be if the council's amenable, we come to you with the actual agreement, but do you have any questions for me?
Be answered.
Yeah, if we
That
get,
last phrase changed it, yep.
if it's utilized, yeah, we need it, yeah.
So I was gonna say, if we don't need it, if it's not needed there, then I'm sure costs have gone up and we reimburse it, resell it
What's
ourselves. But if
Get on
if
eBay.
we are going to need it anyway,
Yeah.
then
Is this a budgeted item that we were gonna expense sometime this year anyways, as well?
So, then Kyle, you can help me through this. The answer is no, we actually currently don't have it budgeted for that particular item. But we do have funds and other projects that could be allocated to that where the whole amount was not necessarily needed.
the one you mentioned in the staff report makes sense, right? Especially
Yeah.
if it's needed in that area.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm out. Well, I'm not out, I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you, JB. Okay. 3.3, 2024 PRCA rodeo discussion. Lauren. The better
Let's
one.
welcome Lauren, this is her first
Your first.
council meeting. She's doing fantastic.
Yes, I'm
Fall
here
asleep
to
yet.
discuss rodeo for next year, and that's fun, I guess. Just to get direction on how we wanna proceed with the 2024 rodeo. Our PRCA application is due in December, so we need to just get answers on a few things. This is Dee Okeson, he's part of our rodeo committee, so I invited him here because he is the expert and I am not. But 2024 will be our 18th year of the PRCA rodeo in Harriman. It's awesome. Historically, we've done a 2-day performance and the last 3 years have consecutively been sold out. So we've been in discussion about adding a third performance for 2024. And we have also been in discussion if we're wanting to increase the prize money for the contestants, just to keep our rodeo competitive and getting high-ranking cowboys to stay interested in coming to Harriman. If you refer to page 3 of my staff report, it gives you a budget breakdown for 2023. Those are actual numbers, and then 2024, a pretty conservative estimated budget for a 2 versus 3 day rodeo. And these estimated budgets include increased prize money and just some of the increases in stock and things that have gone up over the years. So that's all I have. Now let's open up for discussion. What questions do you have?
I always look at you guys first. I have some, but
Let's start out with the bad stuff first. Go for it.
bad stuff. This is bad. So just for, again, public consumption, the difference between the type of rodeo we do and a lot of other local ones, right? So PRCA is a big deal. I think a lot of people don't understand that. So what's the difference between that and some of the others in our surrounding cities?
Go ahead, Dee.
Well, our PRCA rodeo, we've been putting on, like, this will be our 18th year. We did have, before that, just a amateur rodeo that we put on, that Mascaro's put on. We couldn't get a crowd to even come out and watch that thing, so we canceled that. And I've been doing this rodeo with Harriman City since 1999. So we've put a lot of effort in this PRCA rodeo through advertising and everything. And the reason we're coming to you for to increase this to a 3-day rodeo is that our 2-day rodeo is great, but we're turning people away at the gate. And we can keep this 2-day rodeo going forever, but it's just gonna decrease. If we don't increase our prize money and our availability for the people to come and watch this rodeo, it'll just keep going downhill. My thought on the deal is the people that get turned away, their $20 ticket to come, or 25, whatever it is, to come to the rodeo, if they can't get in, they're just gonna give their money to someone that go watch a movie somewhere. It's basically the same cost. We're in here as a committee to give the community an out or an adventure for 1 or 2 or 3 nights so that they can come and see this rodeo. Like I say, our PRCA rodeo has been sold out for the last 3 years, and I think the only way that we can do this is keep expanding to keep people interested in coming to our rodeo. So I went to some of the commissioners and the mayor during our rodeo and talked to them. And they asked, how do we keep it going? And I said, the only way we can keep it going is to expand. You stay the same, you start going backwards. So my thought is to expand on this and give it to a 3-day rodeo. Hopefully we can put some more bleachers in there. And if we up our prize money to the cowboys, we get a different group of cowboys coming in, which will improve the rodeo in itself. So.
PRCA is kind of that gold standard, right? They're very professional, they have a lot of the rule book is 250 pages.
Well, and it's what brings in the
The big
higher
names.
right, the higher quality cowboys and stuff. How many other of our sister cities, if you will, do PRCA versus just a?
Eagle Mountain is the only one
Eagle
close.
Mountain does one, Salt Lake does one.
West Jordan.
Ogden does
Oh,
one,
yeah.
West Jordan does one. There's 680 PRCA rodeos across the United States. Now they've brought them into Canada and Mexico.
I was just looking locally because that's kind of our competition, and what you stated is, I think, correct, looking at some of, I would say, our sister cities that do more amateur rodeos. A lot of them are one night and there's, half the stands full sort of thing, right? So I'm trying to make your case that PRCA is a big deal, and having the prize money brings those names and makes it a bigger deal. The numbers make sense to me. I mean, if you just look at those projections, we have a lower loss by having 3 days, but then looking at making some adjustments, right? If we can add seats, and raising ticket prices isn't necessarily popular with a lot of folks, but if it's sold out, and there's that supply demand factor in the cost, so.
Staff are looking at a lot of options, of VIP packages, those kind of things that are a little bit higher price point. Chief and I have talked about looking at our staffing models and how we can reduce staff for that event. We feel like we're overstaffed. We've talked about, we accepted that award on Saturday night up in Heber, and they have a huge indoor facility that's just outstanding. But just seeing the things that they're doing that we could do that would help us cut those costs down.
Well, and I think it was critical that meeting we had that next.
Yeah, with Patrick.
With Patrick, I think there's a potential to take this team to another level out here.
Yeah.
And I think this is a good first step. I think the new stock that's coming in was unbelievable. I think the Cowboys want to be back here next year to ride those same bulls, but I think the prize money gets them back here. They were
And
talking about
Patrick
it.
has formed so many connections this year, in his first year after taking Barty's stock. He's just, when I talked to him Saturday night, he said, I'm like a kid in a candy shop. He said, I've had the best summer of my life.
Well, his marketing strategy and what he's done is just unbelievable. And that's his background, right?
Yeah.
So having that focal point of, we can utilize that, the footage and the marketing that he did for our community and spotlighting Harriman.
So he already has done some marketing for Harriman City. So he had a deal put on the Cowboy Channel every Thursday night, and he highlighted rodeos that he did after the rodeo. It was Run for the Gold or something like that, it was called. And he highlighted Harriman's rodeo, I think 3 weeks in a row, the different parts of Harriman's rodeo. And in talking to him last week, he has already put together a video that he's ready to start using to promote our rodeo for next year. And it's everything that was done at the rodeo. Plus, he's gone around and sent people around just in the community to see what the community has done. When he was here last year for the rodeo, he has a whole team of media people, and they went around and took videos of what the committees do, or what the community is doing, Kennecott, and all these different things, so it's all added in there as gonna be a commercial for basically the city to use.
Well, and I think too, just looking forward, I think, we talk about this, Bluffdale, TRCC just got awarded Bluffdale $2.7 million for their rodeo grounds. So I think we would like to look at possibly considering TRCC money in the future, even though I think we've talked about adding bleachers this year even. I think there's a permanent
But it could be temporary
option.
bleachers for a
Yeah,
minute.
temporary
and then,
bleachers
yeah.
this year and then permanent down the road, cause that's what Patrick wants. We wanna see more seating, so I think we're headed that way, which is gonna only increase sponsorships down the road and those dollars, you're gonna start seeing some big dollars. We're gonna step up and become a bigger rodeo where our sponsorship dollars are gonna come up and lower that loss.
It's kind of where,
Truly.
yeah, where I wanted to kind of jump this to is the economic impact that we can capture from it. It's a great event, and if we can make some of those internal changes and then capture those dollars as they're coming in now.
Haven't we been
Makes sense.
voted like the best small town rodeo or?
Yeah, we just received
picked
an
up the
award.
award
yeah,
on
yeah.
Saturday.
Yeah, so,
Speaking to that,
Oh, sorry.
those cowboys, those restaurants up in Heber on Saturday night were packed with,
Yeah.
with rodeo folks, so.
Boots and hats.
And I would love to do what we did with the bike thing.
Yeah.
Just have more, I mean, even though there's food there, I think we can also promote our local businesses for those cowboys that are here and, you know, other people, while you're here, here's a discount.
Hotels,
Yep, all gonna come together. Okay, I'm good. I love it. Let's do it. Let's do a 3-day rodeo.
Good deal. Good job, Steve.
Yeah, oh yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
Good job,
Steve.
Steve.
We make it
yeah,
week long.
and just so you know, just one other thing, that award that we did receive, it's the first time we've ever received that award. It's for Small Rodeo of the Year in the Wilderness Circuit, which is not just Utah, it's Utah, Idaho, and Nevada. And the ones that vote on that award are the cowboys that was able to come and go to our rodeo. So it's not anything to do with the media or anything. They sent out a list to everybody that's a member of the PRCA in the Wilderness Circuit, and there's probably 50 rodeos in the small rodeos that they was doing, like, it would be us, it would be Preston, Idaho, it would be Gooding, it would be, you know, all these rodeos that are under a $5,000 added money. And so there's probably 40 or 50 of them, just in our circuit that are small rodeos, and we was able to win that this year. So it's
If we up the prize money, does that put us into a different
no,
bracket?
the $5,000 keeps us in the small rodeo of the year.
Well, I know we're gonna celebrate you in a month, but
So,
thank you for all your.
My goal, just so you know, is to end up being large rodeo of the year, Harriman, and that would be competing against like Oakley and Salt Lake and Ogden and and Reno and Cheyenne. Those are all outdoor large rodeos, so hopefully we can get it going that way.
Awesome.
Perfect, Dee. Thank you for all you do. Appreciate you being here tonight.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Lauren. Okay, 9.4, or 3.4, oh my gosh, discussion of assessment of ice ribbon fees. Anthony.
So that clicker ended up. Alright, I'm gonna just throw a bunch of numbers at you guys, hopefully help us come to a decision here. If you have questions along the way, please stop me and we'll go through them. But yeah, the objective here is to get you these numbers, get you this information, so you guys can make an informed decision on whether you want to increase the fees that we're charging out of the ice ribbon this year or not. And if so, how much you want to, what you want to increase those to, okay? So just a little history, the ice ribbon first opened in 2017, so we've been open for, well, this will be our 7th season. When we first opened, we were paying our seasonal employees $9 an hour out there. We're up to $14 an hour on those seasonal employees. Our returning employees, we're paying them $15 an hour. So inflation is affecting, everything, right? And we're not immune here. These are our current fees that we're charging right now. So an adult admission is $3, child admission $2, toddlers 0 to up to 2 years old, they're free. Seniors and seniors and veterans, $2. Skate rental is $3. We do have helmets out there that are free, and then an ice walker or a stroller, we're charging $5 for those. So that's where we're at with our fees right now. This is a quick comparison of our fees against some surrounding facilities around here. Obviously our fees here on the left. You can see how they compare to some of the other surrounding facilities here. And this is just an apples to apples comparison, so I just got adult admissions, youth admission, and skate rental, not including the other fees that we have, but just wanted to get a good apples to apples comparison here. So, this is based on last year's numbers. This was the revenue that we pulled in, and you can see how that kind of breaks down: adult admission, child admission, skate rental, stroller walker rental. So total revenue that we pulled in last year was $166,000. These are revenue projections here based on our numbers and the prices at the surrounding facilities. So as you can see over on the left, we did just over 19,000 adult admissions at our prices, $3 for the adult, $3 for the adult admission. We pulled in just over $58,000, right? You jump over to the Davis Rec Center. They're charging $7 for an adult admission. At our numbers from last year, 19,335, that's what we would have pulled in for our adult admissions had we been charging $7, $135,345. So that's, just wanted to break that down and give you guys an idea of what we would be pulling in had we been charging what some of the other surrounding facilities are charging currently.
Just something to add to that, Anthony, is that Davis Rec and Mill Creek are both ribbons, like ours. The other ones are your
Indoor.
regular hockey type,
Here before.
just FYI.
And of these facilities that we talked to, I believe it was Cottonwood's facility that said they were gonna be looking at, upping their rates as well. They're about where we're at. But they did mention that they were thinking they needed to maybe look at upping their rates as well. So, any questions on that? Okay. Now getting into our expenses. This is kind of our operational expenses. So we had roughly $57,000 in payroll that we paid out this year. And that's for our seasonal employees and preparation and maintenance of the ice ribbon out there. Utilities, which is mostly power, our compressor out there that runs the chiller that runs that ice ribbon. It pulls we use a lot of power while we're operating out there. So most of the utilities are power, but we're almost 24,000 in power. And then these operation expenses, this is things like maintenance on our Zamboni. We have to take the blades in to have them sharpened every once in a while to cut the ice. We have to buy grinding wheels to sharpen the skates. We buy disinfectant spray for the skates, laces for the skates, that kind of stuff. These are our just kind of operational expenses we incur day to day there. So total operation expenses for the ice ribbon was just over $100,000 last year. The next expense that we have is the bond and the bond payment that was pulled to build the facility out there. So the total amount of the bond, as you can see in the upper right-hand corner, was almost $22 million, right? Not all of that was attributed to the ice ribbon. The skate rink portion was 1.6 million. I don't know if there's a laser on here, but is there a pointer on this? The green button? Okay. Yeah. So we've got our 1.6 million for the, that we can attribute 100% to the skate, or the ice ribbon, right? The auxiliary building out there, costs roughly 5.8 million to construct. However, it's used for other things other than skating during the wintertime. It houses, obviously there's a restroom that's used year round over there. There's storage facilities, and there's, splash splash pad components in there, right? That, they're all in that auxiliary building. We attributed 50% of that auxiliary building to the ice ribbon, so roughly 2.9 million is what we're attributing directly to the ice ribbon.
Anthony, do you know the square footage of that facility?
I don't know off the top of my head, I'm sorry, I don't have that number. So
The whole building is open.
So if we add the, what we know is directly related to the skate rink, or the ice ribbon, and the 50% from the auxiliary building, this is the number that we end up with, is 4.5 million, right? Which is roughly 21% of the total amount of the bond. So 21% of the annual payment on that bond, so the annual payment is roughly 1.5 million. Our 21% of that, roughly 323,000. And that will be paid out, correct me if I'm wrong, until 2033.
I believe that's correct.
I think that's what it was.
Steve's asking if everybody could talk louder. He's really struggling to hear.
Turn that hearing aid up. Oh, man.
I got a
Sorry.
text from an employee.
No, you're good.
So just remember that.
$500 Bose, headphones on. I think that's about as good as I can hope for.
So just, we'll speak loudly.
I'll speak as loud as I can. So keep in mind the 323,000 for the bond payment. That's our our annual payment directly attributed to the ice ribbon, okay, for the bond payment. Next are our capital costs. So these are our costs or our ongoing maintenance costs that eventually we're gonna have to start replacing some of these items. The Zamboni, it only has a life cycle of maybe 20 years, and then we're gonna have to look at purchasing another Zamboni, right? The concrete out there, eventually it's gonna fail. I mean, it may have a 100-year life cycle, but eventually stuff's gonna start failing, you're gonna have to replace some of that. So as we look at what money we need to recoup, through our fees, we have to take this into consideration. So we, with Trevor's help, we did our best to break down all of the capital costs that we could, and we came up with a number, well, let me say this, because we're in our 7th year, so we took the total life cycle of all of these items, right? Minus 7 years, because we're already in our 7th year, and then, broke that down over the remaining life of those items. Ultimately, we ended up with $173,000 that we would need to recover or recoup in a year, right?
That would be in order to fund those as they come up. So the idea is the same fund, that doesn't account for like interest, but it gets you a long ways towards replacing some of those items if you're able to do that.
That's on top of your
Operations.
operation.
On top of the operations, right? So any questions on that? I don't know that I explained that the best, but any questions there?
I got you.
Okay. So just a quick summary here on those expenses. We got our operating expense, the bond payment, our capital cost, total almost 600,000 there that we would like to try and recoup in a year, right, with these fees. Probably never reach that number completely, but I think it shows a somewhat of a deficiency there, right? The last factor that we should probably consider as we are looking at these fees is our ticketing software. We're going to a new ticketing software this year, Roller Pro. We realized there were some issues with last year and some exorbitant fees that we were charging. So we decided we'd go with a newer system this year that will lessen the fees that the end user is paying. We'd like to be able to roll that fee into the total amount, or the price that the end user pays at the counter or when they make their reservation, so they don't actually see an extra fee tacked on. We'd like that built into the admission price. With Roller Pro, they'll be paying a 0.75% charge or fee plus 15 cent per ticket is what it ends up being. So based on our last year's numbers that we did, the fees that we'd be paying for Roller Pro would be roughly $17,000, which is much less than what was paid last year. Last year, unfortunately, the fees were close to $60,000. So,
It ended up being about a third more, like 33%. I was just looking at a reservation I made last year for
Yeah,
a family and
nuts. We ended up not coming here. We went to a different cities thing
So
that added like 40%.
It was between 30 to 40%, so I think even if you increase the rates there, people may actually see depending on which way you pick, they may actually see a decrease over what they paid
Right.
last year.
Was that online only, or was that in?
Correct,
in-person as well?
you have to reserve it online because
Oh,
you
okay,
reserve
yeah.
a spot because because of the number of skates and safety, there's only a certain number of people allowed in each session.
You could pay at the window if there was
If there's
spots open,
space,
but
yeah.
the fee was still there.
Cause we were still using the same processing,
Metric, yeah.
while we were using it to process the credit cards.
And just a quick point, credit card processing isn't on here, so that's another 3 point.
Well, we just took, instead of the 0.75, we just did the Amex fee, assuming everybody's gonna use an Amex, which they're not.
Worst case
but-
scenario.
Yes, which is 3.95, so they'll pay 3.95 plus the 15 cents.
Wendy, you're about
That's
2,500
part of
for
the
school fee.
What?
2,500
What's that?
The
on
credit
that
card
building.
processing is included in that point switch.
No, so instead of the 0.75, cause that's for a Visa, we
Oh,
are
okay.
actually gonna do the 3.95, and Kyle and I just barely decided on that, so Anthony.
Yeah, that was information we didn't have.
Yes.
Or do
We
you
just
do
barely-
like some places and just
It's the roller software that accepts it, so we can't choose which cards we can use.
Yeah, but that's a direct consumer cost, not a city cost, yeah.
So we passed it on, yeah.
Yeah.
So with that, I'm gonna go back to our fees that we have, or we're currently charging, and I guess open this up to discussion. If there's any questions on the numbers that we talked about, shout them out now. Otherwise, these are the fees that we're looking at adjusting. If you're open to it, I can run some calculations here if you wanted me to. I've got a spreadsheet, I can plug some numbers in if you wanted to see what numbers would come out to be. But guess we'll open it up
You take the
for
UTA
discussion.
Rider model and just free admission.
So, I mean, I guess maybe some easy math off the top. I mean, for me, the two things that are most important is cover our costs, which includes the capital replacement, right? Which, thank you for including in that. I know I'm a broken record on that too, right? That's the
The O&M.
long-term financial planning part that gets neglected in these things. So those are the two main things. You're looking at about double, right? 166, add another 177 for the sinking fund. So easily right there, you're double these fees just to cover those. And then it's a question of, how much should we go above that to help with bond payment? I don't know, and this is just me, I don't know how, and this whole thing was built and voted on before any of us were here, right? But even looking at it, the bond is, you'd say it's the ice ribbon, but it's the park and folded into this whole thing, so it would be nice to include that and cover some of it, but I don't know that I'm concerned about covering the whole 600,000.
Right, we just never will.
And our 50% estimate on some of that, how much is attributed to the ice ribbon, it's best guess, right? I
Right.
mean, it may not be quite that much.
I think it's easy to double them, even looking at the other facilities that we're comparing to, so we need to be charging a competitive rate. One, same thing as the rodeo that I mentioned, right, if it's sold out, right, if most of those, especially the weekend evening sessions are sold out, then we should be charging an appropriate fee for that.
We sold out 47% of our slots available last year.
That was the next question, is like
So
usage rate.
We had, I think, 57,000 some odd slots available, we sold out 27,000 some odd slots, so
Do
we're,
any of these do a different rate for those prime times? Weekends?
I mean, that's an
weekend
option,
from
we
6 to
haven't
10,
done that, but yeah,
whatever it is.
that's an option that we could look at,
How does that complicate, it doesn't, you could probably set that in the software system where,
I would just have to make a different type of ticket, it's not impossible.
then it's identifying which are the prime times.
Yep.
In a former life, having managed an family entertainment center, like that, there's several parts to that, right? You need to maximize the supply and demand of those times, but then it also helps push some of that demand to the
Other off days.
other times, right?
how do you increase participation? How do you increase people to come with messaging and maybe other incentives or other, I don't know how.
Well, one thing we've been trying to do is have kind of theme nights, that we're promoting it that way. And these are on our off nights, nights, I
course,
think, what is it, Tuesday and Thursday, or Tuesday and Wednesdays are usually busy.
Sold out.
Youth
It's
groups,
like
Tuesday
youth
and
groups
Wednesday,
come
that's
over.
awesome.
So Thursday night's usually pretty slow. And those are the nights that we're trying to do these theme nights, give incentives to people who dress up, if it's Hawaiian shirt night or whatever it happens to be that night. So we're trying to promote it that way and have fun activities there.
Trevor's night.
80s night or Hawaiian shirt night?
So, I mean,
Hawaiian shirt
Friday
night.
night is
Awesome.
15, open one buck to this 80s night.
So you're saying really, but we're kind of saying even if we doubled, we're not really doubling, because they're not seeing a true doubling based on the fees, right? Because the fees were higher, so even if we double it.
So if you run a model that's $6 for adults, just double everything that's up there.
Yeah, double it, double
And
it.
then tell them how much
X2.
money that is.
Other than the,
Then the toddlers, we can double that.
And you have to double like our profit part of it, so the actual ticket price would have to be
You want me to double the
$10.
walker and?
$10.
No,
I
I don't think
do
the
that.
accessory
but
things.
take the rental to 5.
Okay, so I doubled everything and we're at $6 for adult admission, 4 for, children, 6 for,
Can you bring up the comparison from the other cities?
6 for rentals, and then that puts us at 319,000.
What
So
is
that's
it, what happens
operating
if
in-
you keep the ice rental or the
This
skate
one?
rental?
Yeah. No, that's not the projected revenues, but the, what they're
What
charging.
they're charging.
Sorry.
Yeah, there you go, yeah. So
That's
6,
what I'm,
4, and 6,
what if you keep the skate rental lower, not 6?
yeah.
Leave it at 3.
Keep the skate.
I'd
rental
even be at
at 3.
Or maybe raise it a
Even
little.
5.
Maybe go to, yeah, 4 or 5, yeah.
Okay, I'll go 4 first.
450.
We're at 266,000.
What's
We go to 5, we're at 292,000.
So part of it, what is the individual going to see? And that would be something we would need to just understand,
You gotta
because
add the percentage.
you're adding that fee, was it 4%, right? You're gonna add that in there, what are they actually paying?
What's the percentage of ticket sales to skate rentals though too? Cause not everybody has, I mean,
It's very little that skate without
a rental.
getting a schedule.
So we're,
Wow.
I mean, so you've got your adult admissions, we're 19,335. Child admissions, 7,913. Total skate rentals were 26,450.
And some of those skate rentals, employees skated for free, and then we only charged them for skates, so you'll see that too be a little bit higher.
Okay.
But it's very few that don't have their
Yeah.
own skates.
So maybe we don't increase the skate rental as much, maybe just 4? Is that 4?
$4 for skate rental.
Is that what you have in
That
your
was
mind?
280 something.
I know this is asking a lot, but I mean, skates are one of those things that have maintenance cost and replacement cost.
Yeah.
It makes sense to single that out and say, here's the cost of that. I know I'm crazy, but it's just financial part of me. Say, here's the cost of the skates, right?
Well, that's just, you just have a probably replacement value at X, right?
So we know
A
what
year or
that-
2 years or 3 years.
If we're just guessing, so let's say the replacement, we should be charging $4 for rental just to replace it. And we're charging 3,
Yeah.
right?
I mean, if you just analyzed a pair of skates, say they're $100
You're gonna rent it
to
24.
replace them, but they don't last a season, we've had these for how long?
7
These
years.
are 7
7
cities.
Maybe
years.
replace
We'll
maybe
send
a
some
hundred.
in for repair
So you look
occasionally.
at it, your replacement cost probably more like 50
So if it's
cents.
de minimis,
More
then,
of just
okay.
laces and.
Laces and then
Sharpening,
cleaning them,
Velcro.
there's some of that maintenance cost that you have to take when you rent skates, right? They're spraying them down.
And they're not
Seven-
sharpening them
seven
like
years.
the hockey, like.
It's a lot of Lysol in those skates.
Yeah, I was gonna say, send me, would you wear them if I go to just buy my own?
Would you wear them, Chief? No. Okay.
There's a lot of Lysol.
I'm too old to be on a skate rink, I'd break my hip.
You have your own bowling shoes probably too.
Okay, scratch that.
No, I don't
If it's
believe
de-
that.
if it's
Thank you,
de- if
thank
it's-
you.
If it's de minimis, then
I appreciate that, but,
So skating, I'll get you a helmet too, brand new and clean.
And
Oh,
something
we
to
gotta-
add is our skate, our ribbon sales open next Monday, so they will be at this old price, and the new price point will, once it's adopted, we'll have to start mid-season.
So we're thinking
so if we
January.
can come back,
When is this,
They set it up today. They started processing today.
it'll open next Monday, right?
Yeah, so ticket sales start Monday. Ice
In
ribbon
advance
season.
of ice ribbon opening on the Night of Lights, which is the 27th.
27th, that's what.
27th, right?
Yeah.
So we usually sell our, are we opening it up for the whole year?
Yes.
This year, is that what we decided?
So we, in the past, have only opened it 2 weeks at a time. I can't for the life of me realize why we did that, other than, I don't know. So we're gonna try to open
They
it
can
up.
pre-register for certain days all the way through, Bob. Okay,
If there's an
Yeah.
issue,
I love it, yeah.
if there's an issue, we can change it, but I don't see, people wanna pre-book. I don't see why we need to limit that.
So whatever decision you make, it's gonna go into effect January one, right, Lauren?
Yep.
Okay.
So thoughts on 6, so what did we say?
You
What we
doubled,
did?
you doubled the ice
6.4.
access fee for everything, and you're debating on the skate rental.
So $4, again, you're at, if you doubled everything, put the rental fee, ice skate rental fee at 4, the projected revenue from last year's numbers are $266,000.
What do we need to capitalize for operation and O&M?
Yeah, to me, that's the number and work backwards.
Yeah.
So if I did the math right, you're at about $11 for an adult. They rent
So
skates
101 and 173,
and-
so,
Two seventy-five.
so what are you at, Nathan?
$4 skate.
280? You're at 280?
Yeah, we're at 266 with
So
the,
you're close there. Again,
We're real close.
these are estimates, and we've not done this. I don't know that many cities try to really figure that out. With their capital, their
Not
sinking
everybody has
costs
a
are.
Trevor.
That's right.
That's right. So,
We'll tell you so on your shirt.
So I'm okay with that, I'm okay with that then, we're at 6.
$6 for adults, 4 for children, $4 for the skate rental, keep the walker and stroller rentals at 4. What about seniors and veterans, you wanna leave them at 2? $2, you wanna raise that as well?
Go back to your numbers.
Yeah,
Go up to
add
3.
$1, yeah.
Go
Other
up to
way,
3.
other way. Keep going. There you go.
That one?
Oh, there's no senior on there.
no.
Go up to 3.
Cause that would be half price.
Yeah, make it.
$3 for
Yeah, that'd be half price for the
Seniors and
adults, yeah, senior and veterans.
seniors and veterans?
Yep.
Okay. Fair enough. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Good job.
Thank you.
Okay.
Well, you could have done for $2.
At this point then, we will look for motion to go into general meeting and then we will figure that.
I'll make a motion to temporary close, recess, work meeting to go into general session.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. There's 3 of us.
Sounds like maybe it's an
We
issue
did
with GoToMeeting.
The
YouTube
transferred
is
sound.
working fine, Facebook seems fine, but GoToMeeting for some reason is.
I don't know what
Causing some
Catherine's
issues
watching it
with
on,
our-
but Catherine texted me and she said that she listens to all these meetings and she always shows to hear pretty much everything. Except for Steve, she knows for sure.
Well, they just heard Anthony yelling downstairs as he was talking loud.
All the people on YouTube are like turning their back.
You're sitting up front.
Zoom is too common on the island.
Hand me that.